my name is Vivian and welcome. Today we are going to discuss the negative character arc of Jake Hoyt from the film Training Day with Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington. The character Jake Hoyt, which is played by Ethan Hawke, he goes through a disillusionment arc, which is one of the manifestations of a negative character arc. So what is a disillusionment arc? A disillusionment arc is similar to a positive character arc in which the character grows to understand the truth. The truth is tragic and the character goes from a positive outlook to a negative one. The truth is tragic and it's an eye-opener for the character. A disillusionment arc. The character believes a lie. The character overcomes lie. The character embraces the truth, but the truth is tragic. What is Jake Hoyt's lie? His lie is that he believes that he can save the streets of LA by being a just and honest cop. What is the truth that Jake discovers? In order to save the streets, you got to be one of the bad guys to catch the bad guys. In my opinion, I don't think that works either, but that's not the point of this video. So, KM Weiland believes that the lie the character believes in a negative character arc is directly related to something the character has but devalues. I don't agree with that 100%. I do believe that in a negative character arc, the character's lie can also be related to something the character wants but lacks in their life, which is similar to the lie that a character believes in when they're going through a positive character arc. I don't think he devalues his role as a cop given parking tickets or doing DUI busts. I think he feels he's not doing enough to impact the world and make the world a better place. And Jake has a deep desire to impact the world, and he is not getting that fulfillment at his current role working as a cop in North Hollywood. Jake's normal world. Jake is newlywed and he has a 9-month-old daughter. He lives a simple life with his family and they live in a modest home. He is a cop, but he wants more. He has ambitions of running his own division. He makes a comment in the second scene to his wife and he says, "I would like to own my division one day and look at those houses." Meaning that the detectives that own their own divisions have nice houses and he would like that for himself and his family. He believes that becoming a narcotics officer and working with Alonzo, which is Denzel Washington's character, will get him there. Jake's characteristic moments. Alonzo asks Jake, why does he want to be a narcotics officer? And Jake says that he wants to rid the streets of dangerous drugs. This comment reflects Jake's optimism and naivety. He wants to be Superman and save the world. He really believes that he can save the world. The first act. 3 scenes in, we meet Alonzo, Denzel Washington's character. And he's an a-hole. He is not your typical cop. He even jaywalks. Off the bat, even through dialogue, you can tell that Alonzo is crooked. Alonzo shows Jake's the ropes and also what he expects of him working under his division. And if you pay attention and if you decide to watch the film, which is on HBO Max, you will see that Alonzo slowly chips away at Jake's perceptions about being a cop and what a cop is supposed to be like. And he enjoys using Jake's optimism against him. This is one of Alonzo's manipulation tactics that he uses against Jake to have control over him. About 13 minutes into the film, Alonzo and Jake witness a transaction. They chase the car down and Alonzo threatens and uses force. Then he takes the substance and he takes the money and he lets them go. Then in the car, he compliments Jake, which is a manipulation tactic that he uses. He compliments him and tells him he liked how he handled himself out there and so on and so forth. Then he goes on to saying that a good narcotics officer studies and likes and loves narcotics. A good narcotics agent has narcotics in his blood. And Alonzo takes the substance and whatever and is doing stuff with it. And Jake is like, wait a minute, are you going to smoke that? And he was like, no, you are. And Jake's like, no way, I'm not doing this. I'm not gonna do this. No, no, no. Jake keeps objecting and he says, no, I became a cop so that I can stop people from using, not use it myself. Like, this is ridiculous. Alonzo stops the car in the middle of an intersection and puts a gun in his face and threatens him, basically. And then he goes into his manipulation tactic again and it's like, you know what? I don't even want you in my unit. Go back to the valley, you rookie, and blah, blah, blah. Jake is like, whoa. These words are triggering to him because if he goes back to his old position, it is going to threaten his goal and he won't be able to achieve his goal of wanting to clean up the streets, save the world, right? And honestly, Alonzo knows this. This is why he says the things he says. So Jake has a decision to make. Okay, do I get out of this car and go back to my old position? Or do I stay and keep pushing forward because I know if I'm with this guy, I will get to where I want to be. So remember, when you are creating a negative character arc, give your characters difficult decisions to make. Difficult decisions to make that it is hard to choose the right one it's hard to choose the right one or the wrong one. And typically they'll choose the wrong one, but just make it hard for them to come to that decision. Jake thinks about it. And then he turns around and asks Alonzo to pass him the pipe and he smokes it. He gets validation from Alonzo, of course. And Alonzo's goal is to corrupt Jake, to make Jake be in his likeness. And Jake believes, you know what, if I stick with Alonzo, I will get to achieve my goals and save the world, right? Later, Alonzo tells Jake all the substances that is in his body, and Jake freaks out. He's like, you're gonna get me fired, yada yada. And Alonzo is like, no, I have a guy inside who tells me a week ahead of time whenever they're doing a test. So here we see how deep his corruption runs in his division, in their department and whatnot. And then Jake is like, why did you do this to me? And then Alonzo turns around and is like, you're an adult. You made a decision. A decision is a decision. So again, he's just messing with Jake here. They go to a friend of Alonzo's house. His name is Roger. And Roger is also, I believe, a retired narcotics officer or just doesn't work as one anymore. And he was the one that trained Alonzo to become who he is now. I mentioned this because this is important later. The first plot point. They're driving in their car and then Jake screams like, stop, stop, stop. And he sees two men under the influence harming a young woman. He goes and apprehends them and Alonzo is watching. Alonzo then intervenes and tells the girl to go home. She should be in school. Whatnot. Jake is like, whoa, no. We need to get a statement from her so that we can take them down to the station and whatnot. Alonzo's like, no, we don't need any statement. Like, just let her go. Let her go on her way. And he goes to the men and he terrorizes them and bullies them and whatnot. Alonzo takes their substances and takes their money and then he lets them go. Jake is watching this and he is absolutely disgusted. He's like, yo, they need to go to jail. These are the people that we need to take off the streets. He finds the girl's wallet and he sees her age and sees that she's 14, and he's just even more disgusted with just the whole situation. When they're driving away from the scene, Alonzo offers Jake a beer. Again, crooked cop, you're not supposed to be drinking while you're driving, but that's Alonzo, right? Jake refuses, but Jake still pushes back. He's like, you know, they deserve to be in jail. And then Alonzo is like, why? They got beat up, they got their stuff taken, their money taken. The girl's cousins are probably going to come after them. What is there to complain about? And he's like, Jake is like, I want justice. And Alonzo's like, they did get justice. And Jake is like, that's street justice. And Alonzo is like, what's the difference? Here you can see the dynamic between the characters, that Alonzo is crooked and he is challenging Jake's beliefs, trying to get him to recognize, to see in front of his face that all his optimism and whatnot is just fairy tales, that this is the real deal here. But Jake still isn't seeing it. Alonzo believes that it's best if the criminals just wipe themselves out, but he explains to Jake that that's not how it works. It's always the good people that get hurt. So in order to protect the sheep, he goes into this analogy, Alonzo does. In order to protect the sheep, you gotta be a wolf to catch wolves. Throughout the film, you see Alonzo's manipulation tactics and how he lures people in. I'm sure that Jake isn't the first person that he has done this to. Second act. So as the day progresses, Jake is starting to see more and more how crooked Alonzo is, and the actions that Alonzo takes makes him very uncomfortable. Jake is still presented with many opportunities to turn around and stop pursuing his lie, but he doesn't take them. Jake and Alonzo go to a restaurant and they have a meeting with some FBI agents and some DAs. They're all crooked. They tell Alonzo that they need to kill Roger, the guy that they met earlier that day. Later, Alonzo pulls out $40,000 in cash and he puts it in the trunk. That is money he stole from a woman's house that he illegally searched earlier that day. Jake then meets the other members of Alonzo's unit who bring Alonzo the fake warrant. They enter Roger's house and they find dirty money, and they all take some of the money for themselves. Alonzo offers Jake some of that money and Jake is like, no. And then all of them start making fun of him. Alonzo tells Jake to kill Roger because it has to look like it was in self-defense. Jake says no, he refuses. This is wrong. If anything, they should just bring him in to the department, right? Alonzo takes the gun and kills Roger. Alonzo and the other men in his unit rehearse what they're going to say when they go down to the department. They place some evidence, set up a scene and whatnot. They even shoot one of their own men to make it look like, hey, we killed Roger out of self-defense. And then Alonzo says Jake is the one that killed Roger. Jake was not having it. He was like, no, I did not kill him. I didn't do it. Alonzo says 5 other cops says you did. It's not about the truth, it's about what you can prove. And Alonzo goes on to saying that, hey, it serves your interest if you stick with the story. Jake cannot believe this. He's like, what did I do? At this point, he's like, okay, you know what? I will go back to my old job. I will go back to the valley. I'll go back to writing parking tickets. Alonzo's like, we'll go down to the station and it serves your interest if you stick to the story. At this point, Jake cannot turn around. He can't. He is in too deep. He had chances earlier in the film to turn back, but he didn't. Jake is having a hard time wrapping his head around what just happened. And Alonzo tells him that that wasn't really his friend, Roger. He was pretending. He had to do what he had to do because he knew that Roger was into some really bad things. Jake says it doesn't have to be this way. They could have just handcuffed him and brought him to the station. Alonzo says he understands. It's ugly, but it is necessary. And then Jake says he's still trying to hold on to the lie. He is still seeking hope that his lie, he can still pursue this lie. And he says, I became a cop to put dealers away, to put poisoners away, and to put criminals away, and not to become one. And then Alonzo drops the truth on Jake. He says, in order for anyone to trust you, you got to have a little dirt on you. Later that night, Alonzo and Jake, after leaving the station, Alonzo and Jake go to a man named Chino, his house, and Alonzo leaves Jake there. Jake doesn't know, but Alonzo leaves him there. And then Chino and his boys tell him that Alonzo is in big trouble with the Russians, and by midnight he has to present $1 million to them. If not, they will, When Jake finds out that Alonzo left him and Chino and his boys get into an altercation and whatnot, and then they find the girl's wallet in his pocket. The girl that Jake saved earlier found her wallet in his pocket. And that's their cousin. And then Jake tells them what happened, that he saved the girl, and they call her to confirm. And she did confirm the story, and they let him go. This is the third time in less than 24 hours that Jake has had a gun to his face. The fact that Alonzo is crooked, has lied to him, and also left him there and put his life at risk so many times. Jake has had it. He has had it. He goes on the bus to the most dangerous neighborhood with his gun, ready to meet Alonzo, because he knows Alonzo will be at his girlfriend's house. Third plot point. Jake confronts Alonzo in his girlfriend's bedroom. And Alonzo is like, hey, you passed the test, ha ha ha. And Jake doesn't find it funny. He's like, with his gun pointed at Alonzo, Jake is like, put the money and the weapons in the bag. And Alonzo is like, come on, like it's not that serious. You're in my unit now, you've passed the test, welcome to the division, yada yada. Jake is like, put the money and the weapons in the bag. And then Alonzo is like, you don't have witnesses and you do not have evidence. Who are they going to believe? You have substances in you, you've killed someone, you used a chokehold. I have all these counts against you. Jake doesn't care. They get into an altercation. Jake says the money and the weapons is enough evidence for him to turn Alonzo in. All right, the climax. All right, there is an altercation between Jake and Alonzo, and the whole neighborhood is watching. The neighborhood turns against Alonzo because really they never liked him. He breaks down and is like, Jake, I really need this money. Please give me that bag. Jake says, no. You know what I've learned today? That I am nothing like you. One of the guys in the neighborhood pulls out a gun on Alonzo and tells Jake, we have your back, just go on home. And then Jake takes the bag and leaves Alonzo in the neighborhood with a gun pointed at him and goes back home. In the last scene, we see Jake pull up into his driveway and goes inside the house. And he has the evidence that he will present to the police probably later that morning or whenever he can. Here, it is safe to assume that Jake is gonna go and get his old job back in North Hollywood and continue to just give parking tickets. And the truth he had to embrace was a bitter pill he had to swallow. And his experience changes his perspective on things. He knows he can't save the world. And even trying to save the world, you have to be dirty. He's not gonna sign up for that. In some ways, Jake will see his old job as a cop in a different way and probably accept that that is his way of helping the world be a better place with the little that he does. As for Alonso, he becomes another statistic. The Russians catch up to him and even though he was an officer, he was too crooked that his death was meaningless. He dies a criminal and the streets still remain as it always has. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more videos on writing tips and books. I also have how to write your character worksheets down below. The details will be in the description box. If you like my character arc breakdown videos, you can go ahead and suggest what other characters you would like me to analyze. And go ahead and watch the next video here. I will talk to you next time. Bye!